All right, folks, I decided to do my tracking study on the wolverine, which uh, in the Western US, wolverines typically occupy vast, remote, high elevation habitats, and their populations are poorly understood. But some recent research has shown that these animals are widely distributed and some move long distances across state borders and major highways. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has listed wolverines as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, as there are fewer than 400 wolverines in the contiguous United States. So wolverines are solitary and, as I said, wide-ranging, and likely due to their smaller size, they mostly scavenge carcasses in the snow and feed on the remains of animals killed by wolves or other large predators. They also rely on smaller, medium-sized prey that they can catch themselves, such as squirrels, hares, or marmots. This combination of social and foraging habits likely, in my opinion, dictates their need for wide-ranging habitats that then determine their low population densities and their low reproductive rates in comparison to most carnivores. Because wolverines naturally occur at extremely low densities over large areas, monitoring is actually a really daunting logistical task that's made even more difficult by the species' use of remote, rugged terrain, as you can kind of imagine in the maps provided here. So during the winters of 2016 and 2017, researchers used what is the primary means of tracking the species, camera traps and DNA sampling kits to determine the distribution of wolverines in Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Wyoming. They were detected in about 34% of the randomly distributed cells across these states, but many of the camera trap detections captured the same wolverine in multiple cells. So while helpful, I think that since wolverines can travel up to 100 miles per day, an updated effort to capture and track at least one wolverine's movements with GPS would yield important information about their movements and habitat preferences. So conveniently, last Monday, March 4th, Colorado lawmakers introduced a bipartisan bill that would bring North American wolverines back to the state of Colorado after more than 100 years of being extirpated from that state. So Colorado has the largest area of unoccupied habitat for wolverines, being an estimated 7 million acres that represents approximately 20% of all the suitable habitat in the lower 48, which means that it could support like 100 to 180 additional wolverines to that 400 wolverine population. So if this bill goes through, as the gray wolf reintroduction in Colorado was similarly approved recently, then I would propose that we would track at least one, hopefully multiple, wolverines to be fitted with GPS collars to track how they move across the Colorado alpine landscapes and how they establish territories. So the chance to track released wolverines would not only be instrumental in their conservation and reintroduction in Colorado, but in simply understanding how and where the species uses a landscape. It would also help in determining the size of its home range and the types of habitat it uses at different times of the year. All this information would then be used to manage wolverines in Colorado, where at least one wolverine, as we saw between 2008 and 2016, dispersed from Wyoming. So I have found a number of different instances when wolverines were captured and collared. In 2016 in Yellowstone, 5 GPS collared wolverine females were studied. In 2022, a wolverine was trapped, collared, and released in Utah. So this shows that it's possible to collar one of these fearsome weasels and collect movement data from them. So I do want to say, while possible, fixing GPS collars to endangered carnivores is not an easy task. On the bottom right, you can see the blurb from the 2010 accidental death of a jaguar in Arizona when they were trying to do the same thing and determine its habitat use and movement patterns. So extreme care must be taken with this intensive monitoring practice and the trapping and releasing of these animals. I think that the community practice, however, and the established knowledge are strong enough to justify collaring wolverines to aid in understanding how this wide-ranging species determines suitable habitat in Colorado. So hopefully this will be an opportunity for scientists in the very near future.